a very popular community Diablo podcast.
Hi, and welcome to the Diablo Podcast, brought to you by PureDiablo.com. I am your host, Xanth, and I am joined today by my lovely co-host, Neinball,
Oh, hi.
and somebody in the Diablo community that we may have tricked into coming back, Jay Wilson.
Hey, how's it going?
Uh, Jay, we got a boatload to talk about, and you were gracious enough to somehow come back because you are a much busier man. I assume you were busy the last time we were talking, but now you are significantly more busy.
I'm significantly more busy, but I love talking to you guys, so it's fine.
I appreciate that because in between the last time we talked, you started your own gaming company. This is this is huge. So Gas Giant Games. We did get a chance to break a little news on the site not that long ago, so that was really cool. I've never really broken news before, uh, and we got to introduce that. So, how long has this been in the works?
Honestly, couple years. So the last time we talked, this was actually all going, but it was at a different stage. It wasn't at the stage we're at now.
And it's been going for years, but what was the impetus? I mean, you had the reprieve, you were writing, and now we're coming back into games. So what drew you back?
Well, I left games with the intent to become a writer, or at least make the attempt. And you guys know I did write a novel, and I'm very happy with how it turned out. But I didn't really enjoy the business side of novels, and I missed games quite a bit. I kind of realized it wasn't that I didn't want to make games; it was that I kind of yearned for the time, the simpler days when my teams were smaller and a little bit easier to manage, and I also wanted kind of some control over my own destiny. So it felt like it was time. It was right. It was the right time to venture out on my own. I would add that I love Diablo 3 and how it turned out, but I've never made just one game in a genre. I always feel like once you've made a game in a genre, that's when you actually know how to make a game in that genre. Before that point, you were just guessing. You were just doing the best you can, but flailing around, because the truth is the process of building a game is a learning process. So the idea of returning to a genre that I love so much for that second statement, like that was Dawn of War, which is one of my favorite games. That was my second guess. That was the one where I felt like we really took off. And first one was good, but the second one was great. Second RTS, good. Impossible Creatures was the first one I worked on.
You danced around it a little bit. You are in the process of making another ARPG, right?
Yes, we are an ARPG focused studio for the foreseeable future. That will definitely be our first game.
So, I just love ARPGs in general. Obviously, we're huge fans of Diablo, but
Just a little.
Yeah, just a little bit. Uh, but I dip my toe into just about everything because I love the style. So any more or any new ARPG is always a good thing. You mentioned team size. Uh, Now, if you don't know off the top of your head, that's totally fine. Uh, what was the team size for Diablo 3?
It was, for the most of development, it was about 70 to 80.
Okay.
And when we shipped, we got up to 90. I don't think we ever broke 100. So it was somewhere in that range, 70 to 90 for all of development.
And you kind of mentioned like with moving in with starting your own thing, having like your more ideal like so what is an ideal team size or a manageable team size for where you're going?
Under 45. there's breakpoints in development, like there's where the team changes and the nature of how you have to run it, because the more people you have, the more people management you need, and so right around 5 or 6 is a breakpoint, and then like 20 to 25 is a breakpoint, and then 45 is a breakpoint, and then 60, and then over 100. And at every one of those points, like, you have to do something kind of significant to manage the growth of the team, which usually involves adding more hierarchy, more production, that kind of thing. And so I don't like that. I like interacting directly with everyone on the team, which I tried as hard as I could on D3 to do, but was not. I mean, it's impossible. Like, once your team's that size. The Diablo 3 team wasn't too big. Like, it was fine. Like, it was bigger than I would have liked, but it wasn't too big. And usually people are surprised when they hear that size. But it was also the fact that beyond the Diablo 3 team, I also had 23 other teams within the company that all didn't report to me, but all were connected to me in some way, like cinematics and Battle.net and licensing and marketing. Like, they're all connected in some way, and so we're constantly interacting with them as well. And so it feels way bigger than 70 to 90 people.
Because for like kind of like in like some of like the AAA studio sizes and such, or even just within the same company, like World of Warcraft is much larger than what that Diablo 3 team was. So we think about it as kind of like being small, but when you put it in those terms, it still is quite a lot in order to go through and manage.
Mm-hmm. It is. It is a break point where, like, under 45, I can interact with everybody on the team. Above 45, I can't. Not on a regular basis.
Seems like it makes sense in that regard, because you only have so much time in the day. I mean, you got to spend so much time hanging out with us, chatting about things. That's
the important things.
Because it's not like you just go from like 45 to 46 and everything breaks down. You're like jumping from like 45 to like 50, 55 people.
It's not like the number is general.
Yeah.
Like, it's more just like we kind of notice that once the closer it gets to that number and then past that number, that's where you start feeling it. Because truth is, like, the Dawn of War team was 24. That's kind of the same as 20. Like, it's a little more, and it doesn't really feel like that much more.
So, you got this number of 45. I'm just writing that down here. Maybe hypothetically there are people listening that have experience or are interested in the industry. Are you hiring? Are you looking for more people to make that number?
So not right now. And actually 45 is like that's like, oh my God, we're actually probably targeting more like 30, 32, somewhere in there, that range. But the problem is just whatever number you target, you're going to end up higher. So you target a lower number than what you can handle. So we probably handle 45, which means we're targeting 30. But no, right now we are not hiring. We're not in a position to. We will be in the not probably too distant future. But yeah, everyone who sends an application, which we've gotten a lot, I have to kind of say, well, not right now. But maybe soon. But I keep everybody's contact information. So I keep, if somebody sends something, like, I will hold on to it. If we have a position open up, then the first thing I'll do is look through the spreadsheet of who's contacted us.
I'm just gonna brush up my resume and a CV. Do you prefer a CV or a resume? Just for anybody else.
Make it digital. That really helps. otherwise, like if I can hit a link and see like your portfolio or something, even if you password protect it, like that really helps.
Well, anybody out there listening with some talent, feel free to take that advice. I have none. I'm not begging for a job here, Jay. Uh, I'm okay. But somebody out there might. Neinball. Neinball. Just in case. Just in case. So I remember with D3, as you were kind of going in, and if you can't go into this at this early point, that's totally fine. But one of the big parts of Diablo 3's development were the pillars. Do you have your pillars in place for your new game?
Yes, yeah, we do, and also for the company. We have both kind of founding principles, which honestly, those are on our website. And then we also have a like team management kind of pillars that we talk to like every person who we've pulled onto our team. Like one of the first things we do is sit down and talk about the company pillars, and then the team pillars. The I would say the project, the pillars are not as concrete as we made them with Diablo 3 because the team's smaller. When the team's smaller, you can communicate easier. You don't need like these monolithic declarations as much. But yeah, we do definitely have like our goals, and it's a very tightly defined project with this. Like I'm all about vision. Like if your vision is solid, you know exactly what you want to make and nothing more, then you can develop your game. You're going to make a better game if you're very, very clear about what you want to make and a little brutal about what goes in and what can be knocked out of your game.
Right. So you're making a shift from working on someone else's IP to working on your own. What's harder?
Well, I've done both. So that really has a lot to do with the team and the situation. Like, so for Diablo 3, that was extremely hard because as an IP, there were a lot of preconceived notions about like what is in and allowable in a Diablo game. Like I had people on the team say to me, completely straight faced, "There's no magic in Diablo." Pretty sure sorceress is one of the class. It's like, and I also had them say, "Well, the only enemies are demons. Well, zombies aren't demons." Like and the problem is with an ARPG, like one of the things that I think people don't get that makes it a difficult genre is variety is everything. Like variety is what keeps you going. It's what keeps like, as you move through like, Diablo 2, Diablo 3, both like they change up like the enemies that you're facing and the environments that you're going into, like clockwork. I think D2 does it a little better, but D3 we modeled it on D2. Like we tried to get as close as we could because we're like, it's this perfect like it's this perfect pacing of like they introduce a new monster at this very regular interval, and they introduce these new environments, or at least they change you up in environments at these very regular intervals. And so if you have an IP that's really tightly constrained, then the variety that you need to be able to keep the player interesting becomes very difficult because you have so little range. I think that's why if you look at like the original Diablo versus Diablo 2, a lot of people complained that Diablo 2 was too bright. But a lot of what they were trying to do was explore like different kinds of environments so they could keep that variety going. Like they knew what they were doing. So on the other hand, like Dawn of War was super easy for me. And part of that was the team didn't have a lot of preconceived notions. Like they were not huge war. I mean, there were some people who loved Warhammer on the team, but the majority of the team, like I introduced them to Warhammer. Now I'm the perfect person to introduce people to Warhammer because when I love something, I get really excited about it, and I just let's talk about it. Well, I can talk about Warhammer for hours, and that's what we
listen for hours.
When a new person would come on the project, we'd go off into a meeting room, and I would spend a couple hours talking to them about Warhammer, and they would walk out of that room going, "Wow, Warhammer's so cool." So that was not a difficult. That was not a difficult project. IP really is again. I think it's all about expectation as well. When you're building your own IP, a lot of it comes down to the team. Like, is your team fixated on building IP, and do they have extremely high expectations about that? That's hard. It's hard to build new IP inside Blizzard, for example, because you've got to make the next Warcraft. You've got to make whereas a lot of the most fun I've had is when we let the IP kind of form naturally as we went, where we knew what we wanted to build and we had a theme, and we knew what the game needed, but we let the game lead as opposed to the IP. So, every project's different, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
No, I think that's
great
super
question,
interesting.
though.
And it was one that I was kind of just generally interested in because, I mean, you did carry on, Diablo from Diablo 2, which had that huge expectation on its shoulders. And now you're going into an environment which, I'm sure there's still an expectation on your shoulders. You still want to do well, but you don't have 12 years of expectations that are just hanging behind you. And you get to kind of have that freedom.
Well, and the one hand, we won't necessarily get directly compared to Diablo from an IP standpoint, unless people just like that IP more, which more power to them. But we'll get compared to every ARPG.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. But we feel pretty confident that we know how to make a good one.
And are you playing other ARPGs as you guys are kind of developing just to see what the rest of the market looks like?
Oh yeah, I love ARPGs. I always play them. So I've played pretty much everything. What's funny is I actually hadn't played D3 in quite a while, like probably 3 or 4 years. I think, I think maybe when the Necromancer pack came out was like the last time I really seriously played D3. I'm playing D3 right now, so that's actually what I'm really really enjoying. So, but yeah, I mean Lost Ark, and you could argue games like Borderlands and Destiny are also ARPGs. I play those. I play Path of Exile. I play all of them. Julian is probably more the like I am the generalist, team leader type of person. Julian, who's our other founder, he is the eats, breathes, knows everything about ARPGs ever, kind of guy. So we each have our different skill sets that we lean on, and so from that's his area. I know them pretty well. Know them well, probably better than most people, but not better than Julian.
That says something, I mean, because you were the game director for Diablo 3. And that's not to say that Julian hasn't done a lot as well, because he definitely has. Out of curiosity, how did that partnership form between you and Julian? Obviously, you worked together at Blizzard, but how did you guys come up and go, hey, let's do this?
Well, so Julian's worked on every incarnation of Diablo since Diablo 2. So that includes Diablo 4 and Immortal. We met on Diablo 3. He was there when I started. He was the lead tech artist. I kind of quickly, as I did my best to establish a vision that the team would believe in. I felt like Julian Julian knows how to make things awesome. Like he knows how to make things really awesome. There are developers, and these are not bad developers. They're perfectly good developers, but there are developers who like can see an awesome future. And then there's the developers who can't, and like those developers can be extremely valuable, but the ones that can see, like when you talk about a class or a monster and you try to explain it to them, and they can see what you're saying and turn it into something great, probably better than what you even imagine. Like Julian almost always over delivered for me. Like every time I had an idea, like he would be like, okay, that's cool. And then I would get it and it's like, well, that's cooler than what I had in mind. Like that doesn't happen very often. Like, and not because I have the greatest imagination in the world, but because all of our imaginations are so powerful. Like imaginations are more powerful than any computer. And so as a result, it's hard to live up to them. And so like Julian and I had that great relationship because he could just make things great. And so I didn't, a lot of the times when you have, especially when you have a bigger team, people get specialized and they get kind of gate kept into their disciplines. But I'm not a big believer in that. Like if I work with somebody and I think they're a good designer, then they get to design stuff. And Julian was a great designer. So I just never said no to him. And I think I probably made it fairly clear that I'm probably not going to say no to you. Like just do what you're awesome. You do great things. You make the game better. Just do it. Like don't ask me for permission. I don't want you to. I'll be mad if you ask me for permission. Just go. I think that was a really great working experience for him. The two of us working together, and it helps that we think very similarly. Like we both love the moment to moment kind of gameplay, that thing that Bungie would say, the 30 seconds of fun. Like they did a talk once about if you can get 30 seconds of fun and you can repeat it forever. Like I love that. And I love focusing on what that is. Like, what is that thing that is so much fun that you could do it forever? And Julian loves that too. And so we have very similar interests in that way. So after I left the Diablo project, Julian, of course, stayed because he loves it, and eventually moved over to design, to be a full combat designer. He, when I decided I wanted to move back into the game industry, he was the first person I called because he's my favorite person. I mean, my favorite person to work with, I think. Like, I mean, I probably could come up with other people who are equal. I don't know if I could come up with anybody better. And it was somewhat of a litmus test too. Like, I mean, Julian loves Diablo. Like he's worked on Diablo. He worked on Diablo for 19 years. Part of me was like, well, if I can get him, I could probably get a lot of people. Like I may have something here. And as he likes to tell it, he said yes before I finished the sentence. So yeah, I mean, the long story short, we worked together on D3 and we really liked working together. That's the non-rambly story.
I think Julian needs to obviously hear this. I'm sure you've told him time and time again, but that was such a nice explanation and like so kind. So if Julian, if you're listening, and you should,
Julian,
just take that and play it back if you're ever feeling down about yourself. Not that you should, but man,
he hears it from me.
Yeah,
he hears it from me a lot. Like I love
a boss that says that. That is so yeah, that was great. And I can get why he would leave, but you are right that is a huge litmus test to leave, a job that you've been at for a significant amount of time and to take a risk, right?
Mm-hmm.
To branch out on your own. I think that also gives an indication of his faith in you and what you are cooking up.
Thank you.
So the logical question is, when's the release date? I just want to pencil it in, so we can plan.
I don't know.
That's fine.
There's
I figured as
I
much.
actually do have a schedule, but there's moving dates within it right now because based on like where we are with the development of the company. So the development of the company comes first, and then the game, because you need the infrastructure, and then based upon how that goes will be the next step, which is the actual making of the game. So it's not gonna take forever. It's not gonna be like a 8-year trip. I'm not interested in that. Like I did that. I made we made Dawn of War in 21 months. I'm more interested in that. Like I don't think if you know what you want to make, I don't think it has to take forever. So yeah, but still years away.
Okay, so like I got my hopes up, then you tempered my expectation right there. That's okay.
Well,
That's fine.
Diablo 4 is about to come out. Like you all
Yeah,
have
no,
something to do.
I'm gonna be busy. I know that, but
Yeah,
I'd like to have things to look forward to, Jay. Like I need
I
something
get it.
else on the horizon. Um, I guess that leads to another question. So we're seeing with Diablo 4 right now, they have a battle pass, and we saw it with Diablo 3 with seasons and all that kind of stuff. Is the goal of, and if again, if you can't talk, that's fine. Is the goal for your upcoming game to be continually iterated on, or is it going to be more of a one and done?
Iterated on. Definitely. Our goal is to make a game that is so much fun that we will enjoy continuing to work on it. Now, what we're not interested in is like what we tend to not so kindly call a skin factory. So we're not really interested in just reproducing like one type of content over and over, but an ARPG really thrives on like seasonal updates and content across the board. New new environments to play in, new adversaries to fight, new classes. All kinds of content. So yeah, it's definitely something that we would look to support for years. So if we support it for less than 5 years, I'll consider that a failure.
I mean, obviously a lot of gaming has been going to like games as a service, but it's one of the things that ARPGs have kind of lived off of even before like that term came into existence with seasons, ladders, and such. So it does make sense to kind of like have that in mind before you're even kind of like sitting at the drawing board.
Yeah, totally. The thing about ARPGs is that as long as you support them, they keep selling. They're an odd duck, like because most games, most like box games, they sell most of their units in the first year, like I mean by a huge number. Diablo 3 was not like that. Diablo 2 was not like that. Like there was just a steady, the every year the number was fairly similar. Like, and so they just continue to sell and sell and sell. And so, the idea of supporting them, of course, but the nice thing is that again, like a lot of games of service, they end up kind of churning out the same kind of content because that's the thing. Usually, that's the thing they're selling.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with an ARPG, that model doesn't work. I mean, it works for Path of Exile, and that's great, but it's a tough model in general. Like to go like for just specific like cosmetic content. Like it's better to be able to do content across the board. It's way more interesting for the team. So the team wants to stay there longer, which means you're going to get better quality stuff. And the game will continue to do really, really well. And sure, you can sell more stuff, but it's more about like keeping the game alive and keeping the interest in it. Because as long as that's happening, you'll still make money as a company. Again, like Diablo shows, and then the nice thing I'm sure for the Path of Exile guys is, in addition to the cosmetics they sell, they add other content too. So, I'm sure that's a big relief for them, that they're not just stuck on one thing that they build.
You talked about a skin factory. So we're going to dovetail a little bit. During Diablo 3's early showings, there was a big controversy over a rainbow, which we'll dub colorgate. We've talked about it. I think we talked about it on the last podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you've been following D4, but I want to give you, I think Neinball can bring it up. What I think a skin factory might work as a controversy here. Neinball, what's Diablo 4's current cosmetic controversy?
Is it the actual, like, the character body types?
Oh no, I was thinking the genitalia.
Oh yeah, the censorship that, it's like the succubuses are wearing tops as opposed to being naked, and that the corpses don't have genitalia.
That's the current controversy. So if you had to choose between dealing with rainbows and people mad that corpses don't have genitals, what controversy do you choose? There's no right answer, Jay. That's a trap. I'm not going to make you answer it.
No right answer.
No, there isn't. There isn't a right answer. But I love the fact that there have been stupid arguments made in both Diablo 3 and Diablo 4, to the point that someone has gone and counted and looked at every corpse for genitalia.
Some people on the internet have way too much time.
Yeah. A rainbow was at least easier to see and required way less time.
I know that when I'm running through my ARPGs at 100 miles an hour, killing monsters by the dozens with whirlwinds and lightning bolts, that seeing that perfectly modeled genitalia arcing, it really sells the experience.
It's just that little piece. It's just that little flavor that pulls the whole genre together. Honestly,
that's how you know.
People want what they want. Sometimes they surprise you.
That doesn't make it into a meeting at Gas Giant Games. Like, all right, guys, what's our genitalia situation here?
I could tell you right now, the genitalia situation is no genitalia.
You just lost a few customers, Jay. You just lost a few customers.
So maybe some bare bottoms. We can maybe.
Okay. Well, somebody's gonna be scoping a beta and looking.
I always feel like that stuff you have to I always kind of feel like, when you do it, do you look at it and go like, okay, if that's your only reason, then no, take it out. Like, that's not a good enough reason. Like, if there's like Succubus is a good example, and I'm not commenting on Diablo 4 and their choice there. They made whatever choice they thought was best for their game, and more power to them. But I can also see the other side of it, where you're like, well, this is a succubus is a, they're a seduction-oriented monster. Now, I would say nowadays, because of the where we're at culturally, put an incubus in there too. Like, if you're gonna do one naked, do them both naked. Then it's fair.
No. They're not asking for that.
They just want the naked ladies. It's like,
yeah.
Like, I think it's not. There's nothing wrong with, like, if you wanna put like sexy naked people into your media, whatever that media is, movies or television or whatever, great. Just be equal opportunity about it. Like, everybody likes to see sexy naked people, like men and women. Just be equal opportunity about it.
This wasn't in my notes, but here we are.
We've diverged.
Yeah. Well, I don't have to tell you this, but Diablo 3 actually had gotten a lot of praise when it first came out because of the way that it had treated the character designs for both sexes across all the classes. It's like if the male barbarian was wearing hulking steel-plated armor, the female barbarian was. When the female barbarian was wearing like a leather loincloth, so was the male barbarian. There's parity across the spectrum there. Yeah, I talked about this on the last episode. Everybody was so concerned, like when Diablo 2 Resurrected came out, everyone was so concerned that you couldn't see the succubus nipples, but nobody cared that Bale's minions lost their penises.
I mean, I'm very proud of D3 for that. That was something we talked about a lot throughout development, and a lot of it was, again, just equal opportunity. Like, that doesn't mean don't make people appealing or your characters appealing. And especially because in a lot of ways, like there's a lot of people who the female barbarian is their jam. Like, who look at that and go, she's hot. Like, she's not the typical standard beauty, but does that really even exist anymore? Like, a lot of people find a lot of different things appealing. Like, there's nothing wrong with speaking to them. They'll still be, the demon hunter out there. Like, the demon hunter was our, like, we're going to make a standard, very attractive character. But even there, like, we went to the women on the team and said, okay, we're doing male demon hunter. Who's the hottest actor? Like, who do you think is super attractive? And I'm not going to answer who it was, but that's what we based it off of. So we tried to.
I want to know. I got to find that out somewhere.
We wanted to say, like, okay, if the female demon hunter is supposed to be the ideal, the quote unquote ideal for men, then the male demon hunter should be the same for heterosexual women. So.
Not where I expected to be, but this is fine. This is fine.
I'm probably getting really big trouble right now. Like there's probably going to be headlines across the internet about and I'm going to get canceled because I'm sure I've said something wrong. If I have, I apologize.
I don't think that you have, Jay, and obviously somebody might point out, I guess, but I think you've explained it well, that essentially your goal is representation, right? And not pigeonholing one thing or another because it is mainstreamed. And bucking against type. D4 has done that with the druid. So the male druid is kind of more of a bulky man, like what you would expect a typical strong man to kind of look like. They're huge. And the female druid is the same.
Yeah,
it is a more stout female, and that got a lot of reaction as well, due to that exact kind of thing of like, no, like this is what we envision this type of character to be, and that's how we're choosing to represent it. And I don't see anything wrong with that, but some people do. So since we're talking about Diablo 4, and you've got some experience with some betas, there's been a recent Diablo 4 beta, which was open to the general public, and like with anything, garnered some criticism. It was the opportunity for most of us to finally get a chance to play it, and some things came to light, some criticisms, and the Diablo 4 devs aren't going to come on here and talk to us, but so let's pick your brain and see if you can tell us what can actually change in a 2-month span between now and release. Now, granted, there was a closed beta that we don't know anything about it, so maybe some of this feedback went through, but at most we're talking 8 months, right? Neinball, closed beta was 8 months ago?
I think the closed beta was like September, October.
Okay. So
6 months.
Yeah. So
6, 7.
Between
8.
6 and 2 months to fix an issue. So let's start big. Let's start with a class. Let's say one of the classes that is going to be launched has a noticeable power gap between them. Is that something you can fix in a 6 or 2 month span? Like completely change the way that works?
It depends, is unfortunately the answer. The first thing I'm going to say is I would encourage the audience to be patient with the Diablo 14. Like, they are, whatever is wrong with the game, I guarantee, like, criticism, if it's valid, I guarantee they're working on it. They're working on it right now. Just because they can't put it in the shipping copy does not mean that they don't take it seriously. It doesn't mean that they aren't feverishly trying to fix it. There were things that we knew were wrong with D3 when it shipped. But once you pick that date, that train's a moving. And there's no stopping it. And there's actually very little you can do running up to that date. But there were features that were almost working that we felt, addressed criticism of D3, but they were almost working when D3 shipped. Not when we actually went I don't even think they use the term anymore, but they used to call it going gold, which meant it was you printed your gold CD and that's kind of it. So the short answer is anything that doesn't touch code, audio, localization, which is translation. So any words that, especially if they're recorded, forget about it. The biggest things you can change are numbers. So if, for example, like you have an axe that has too little DPS, that's an easy change. Like you go ahead and change it. It doesn't really, nothing's going to break when you do that. But past that, and that's at about 6 months out. At about 6 months out, it's hands off. Like, and you spend all that time, and it's longer for console because console has the whole approval process with the publishers. So once the game is kind of out of the team's hands, and the closer you get, the less likely. Like if you can, like in I'd say 3 to 6 months out, you maybe can hit an emergency or two. You get a couple like oh my god, we'll go to Herculean efforts to fix this thing or this thing. But the closer you get to that and once it's 3 months out, you're not touching it.
Which is basically the window that we're sitting in now.
Yeah. Now again, other than maybe numbers, like you can go through and retune a lot of and a lot of an ARPG is numbers. Like I mean the especially in your procedurally generated areas, like there's monsters, itemization, a lot of class design. A lot of that's numbers, but sometimes, and not a small amount of time, the fix to a problem is not just numbers. It's something else. And as soon as it's something else, you're kind of stuck. But that doesn't mean they're not working on it. It just means it won't necessarily be there in 1.0.
So you kind of mentioned it, like when you are in the release, right? Or at least within that window, there's not so much that you can actually do. What does the team work on during that time? Are they going back and hitting on previous or like planned updates for the future? Are they fine-tuning certain things, or is it just perfecting what is actually there?
So it depends upon the team, like who is where on it. but your kind of art side, they are mostly probably working on the next thing. They're fixing bugs, because bugs can occur in anything. But bugs are, people often think of bugs as code, but anything wrong with the game, devs just call it a bug. Like it's like, oh, this texture's misaligned. That's a bug. Like, it just, because it's easy enough to just say, like, no, that it's something wrong with the game. So there are things like that, but a lot of the time, like the art team is working on whatever's going to come next, especially definitely in that last 3 months. The programming team feverishly fixing coding bugs. Like, that's just, and then testing. The design team, testing, playing the game over and over again. Essentially getting that like playtime in to try and find things that are horrifically wrong with the game. And things like I know people are like, well, if this class is not powerful enough, that's horrifically wrong with the game. It's like, no, you don't understand. Like, that's way worse. What's way worse is my bug corrupted your hard drive. Like, that's way worse. The things that or crash bugs and stuff that prevent players from being able to play the game at all. Like, those are the types of things that people are working on. It is amazing how much time can be taken up just with that, just with testing and reviewing and making. A lot of the times the leadership is just making decisions. Like, what do we fix? What are we gonna risk? What are we not gonna risk? And so, like, a lot of your leadership time gets pulled up into that. And the bigger the release, the more that is. Like, when I worked on smaller projects, it was more like the last 2 months that happened. And then up to then, we were working on the game, like we were developing the game. But the bigger the product, the more attention, the more time, the more moving parts, the more everybody has to solidify. And every time you go in and poke the bear, like, make a change in the code base, make a design change, like, you don't know what. One of the designers I used to work with said that, like, making changes to the game, he's specifically talking about design, but I think it works. It's like throwing a rock into a lake. Yeah, you can predict how the ripples are going to go out, but very quickly they're going to hit other things and they're going to start coming back, in different directions, in different ways that you never could have expected. That's what game development can be like. Like, you threw a rock and you thought all it was going to do was this, and then all of a sudden a whole bunch of crap over here just failed, like, and fell apart, and you're like, oh god. Like, so you just have to, lock things down earlier and earlier, especially for those really big projects.
It was one of my favorite anecdotes for that one is playing World of Warcraft during Mists of Pandaria. We fixed a bug with one of the boss encounters in the Heart of Fear. Now the chess event in Karazhan from 3 expansions ago doesn't work anymore.
Yep, that sounds about right.
Yep.
Yeah, and game development is I truly think video game development is the hardest thing that humans do. It's more difficult than movies, it's more difficult than television, it's more difficult than music, like, because it kind of brings all those things together. I don't say that to diminish any of those other art forms. I could never do any of those as well as the wonderful people who do them, and I love all those. I love music and TV and movies and everything, but games, sane people should not make games, because once you see all the work, you're like, why would anyone ever do this?
That seems pretty fair. Well, I think you've kind of covered the other parts I was going to ask about in terms of like UI and fonts and all that jazz because you kind of wrapped it up there. Um, so you want to talk a little?
Honestly, if you were like, oh, we're going to change the font, maybe, because the big thing you'd have to do is check if you're changing font that exists within like UI, then you have to check to see if it fits, and you have to check it and see if it fits in every language, because those Germans love long words. But that's not undoable. But it's tough. But like, if you decided to change your font for your chat, I mean, that's not that big a deal. That's just it's easy. That you probably could do, but you're unlikely to do it because you probably made that decision a long time ago.
Well, do you want to talk a little Diablo 3?
Sure. Or we can talk Diablo 3, 4, Gas Giant, whatever you want to talk about.
Well, I want to talk about a lot of things, but you have a limited time, and I don't want to be greedy with it. You're playing the most recent Diablo 3 season, right? It's been a few years since you've gone and played. What do you think of all the changes? How's your return to Sanctuary?
Um, oh God, that's a tough thing to answer because I don't want to make anybody feel bad. Not that I have a lot of bad. For the most part, I love Diablo 3 every time I come back to it, and I think a lot of the features that they add are really cool. Like some of the environments, like that I had not seen because they were in other seasons, are like, wow, this is crazy. There's an I don't know how long ago they added it, but there's an environment. I think it's in Act 5, I'm pretty sure it's Act 5, and it keeps changing tile set as you're walking through it. Mm-hmm. I'm just like, that's so cool. Like, that's hard to do because I know how that's built, and so like that's really cool. So that stuff really it's always very exciting. I'll say a controversial thing because it's fun. My current character that I've jumped around characters because that's what I do. I'm an alt-aholic. I jump between different characters a lot. But currently I'm on a demon hunter. I'm level 37, and I have 7 legendaries that I'm wearing. That feels like too many legendaries to me. So that'll be my controversial thing. I think legendaries drop too much.
Jay Wilson hates legendary items. Right in there.
That is the headline. I hate legendary items.
I definitely get that. I get class envy way too much in an ARPG where I feel like I get a good build going and I see somebody else. I'm like, wait, that looks fun, and I never make it to the end with a different class. So I totally get
and
that.
I just play necromancers.
Yeah.
You have solved the problem, sir.
Yeah. I am easy to please. Just give me undead corpses. I'm good.
Yeah.
No genitalia, though.
I mostly play barbarian. Like, that's my go-to. But I jump around to everybody. I think the only
you like playing leap builds.
Like playing what?
Leap builds.
From the jumping around.
Leap. Yeah.
Oh, leap builds. Oh, I think leak builds. Yes, I mostly love Whirlwind. Like, I love Whirlwind, and I love Hammer the Ancients. Like, I can hammer the Ancients and Whirlwind people all day long. I love Whirlwind so much that when I play a Demon Hunter, I use the Demon Hunters. It's Strafe, I think, because I love Whirlwind. But yeah, the only classes that I never seem to really catch on with me are pet classes. I just don't like having pets. I've never really liked it. So they don't, they're cool classes. Like, I totally see the appeal, But the only pet class I ever played for a long period of time was the Warlock in WoW, and primarily because he seems like he hates his pets and they hate him, and I kind of like that relationship. So like it was like, okay, I'm okay with this. Like I'll kill my pets to oh, I want a shield. Well, you're screwed, buddy. You're gone. Like, that's the kind of pet relationship I want.
Like, Jay Wilson breaks Neinball's heart. That comes this. Sorry, bud.
I'm curious, you guys. Like, I haven't talked about it. Like, how excited are you for D4?
I am very excited. I've been. I did play the open beta. I played as much as I possibly could. The one class that was not present in D3 that has been my favorite forever is the Druid, and it's made its return to Diablo 4. So that has been it's been very fun to kind of return to that kind of class fantasy. So I'm very stoked. June cannot come soon enough to kind of dive back into that world. Neinball?
So that means Druid, your first class. Neinball Necromancer?
Oh yeah, that goes without saying. Definitely, I'm gonna be playing a Necromancer. I'm excited. I've always been kind of like a lore and a story guy, so just being able to play through the storyline for the first time is obviously going to be really big for me. In the beta, we got to play through Act 1 of many, and it'll be interesting seeing how they handle the non-linear storytelling as well, because you can complete the game in different paths. As you can kind of like choose your own adventure. Even though in like the beta you could only complete Act 1, when you start that quest, you're kind of like given the option to go and do Acts 2 or 3 at the same time. But we're constrained for testing purposes. So I'm really looking forward to that aspect of it. Just getting a feel for what's going on in Sanctuary. How's Heaven doing? What's going on in Hell? What giant monolithic threat is going to consume all of our souls?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. I have not played in the beta at all. I've made games long enough now and played games that were not done because I make them for a lot. I'm like, I like for games to be done. Like, I'm just gonna wait until 1.0, and so I'm very excited. And Barbarian, of course.
And I did play a little bit of Barbarian in the first weekend. It is very fun. It does have a whirlwind, so I think you're going to enjoy it.
Awesome.
So yeah, and talking about story, I did put out there if people had questions for you on Diablo 3 to kind of toss them my way. The focus for Diablo 4 is around Inarius and Lilith. The question was there ever any talk of incorporating those two into the story of Diablo 3 at any point? Or was that something that you didn't end up talking about prior?
I don't think either of them were. I don't remember whether Inarius was or not. I don't think so. Lilith was not, but Lilith had came up as like a cool character a lot that we would talk about, but I can't say it. But we never planned on integrating Lilith into the story. Like one of the things I was very focused on, like when I came onto the project, the plan had been that Diablo wouldn't be in it, and I was like, no, my first Diablo game is not going to be Diablo-less. So I focused a lot on that, and I loved Adria, so that's one of the reasons we brought her back. So that was more of the focus. But no, Lilith is super cool villain, so like I'm glad they made that choice because I think she's awesome. But yeah, we didn't. I don't ever remember that being part of the story discussion.
It's kind of interesting that you go through and you bring that up, because everything that we know so far in Diablo 4, there obviously is a whole lot of the story that we haven't even touched yet. But it is kind of like shaping up that Diablo might not even be in it. There could be some sort of like surprise villain at the end, all like Final Fantasy IX. but we've not seen or heard any talk. It pretty much is all just Lilith at this point. So it's interesting mentioning that with Diablo 3 that there was a point in time where Diablo might not have been included in the opening act of the game, as it were.
Yeah. Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with not putting Diablo in as the primary villain. But yeah, when I came on the project, it kind of also felt like a bit of an easy win because it's what the team seemed to want. Like the team felt like they really wanted their villain to be Diablo still.
Mm-hmm.
So whereas with 4, like they chose a great villain. So I don't think there's anything wrong with. If anything, I'm more like salute them their guts of not putting Diablo in a Diablo game. Like that's great. Like as long as you've got a good enough villain to stand up, and I think they do.
Yeah, I think it also just kind of shows that the game itself, the IP, has matured, that you can have other things besides just, Diablo.
You have to. You have to have other things. Like stagnation is death for an IP. As soon as your IP stagnates, then you might as well, you could still. You're just going to get diminishing returns after that because you don't have anything new to say. And at the end of the day, people want something new.
I think it's also kind of fair too when thinking about Diablo. Diablo 2 and Diablo 3. Diablo is not the end villain in the games that we play after 2-3 years. We add on. Diablo is like a stepping stone typically because then Diablo 2 it's Baal, and then Diablo 3 it's Melthiel. So there's always somebody else. Maybe it would be nice if like the end boss in this one is Diablo. If we find our way to him eventually, I'm okay with that. I think the growth of the franchise is a good thing. We don't need to always kill Diablo right away.
Yeah, the funny thing is that on one hand, like Diablo is a great name. Like it's one of the all-time great names for a franchise. Like on the other hand, like it's not usually a good idea to name like what if like in 1977 George Lucas released Darth Vader. Like
yeah.
That's probably not a good idea. Like he's not going to be in every one of them. So it's good and bad. But I mean, I can see like I wouldn't have been able to resist that name. It's great.
That's awesome. So this wasn't a question, but it was a nice comment, and I thought I would bring it along. This is courtesy of Narf on Twitter. They just said, I can't think of a question, but you might say thank you to him for the most played game in my life and wish him all the best with his new one and his company that he is developing.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate that a lot. That's all I ever wanted. People play the games I make and have a good time.
I feel like that's a good goal, right?
Yep.
Can't go wrong with that. As we're kind of one.
Who sent that in?
Narf on Twitter. They've got.
Thank you, Narf. I appreciate it.
There you go, Narf. You're getting a shout out for being a kind person, and it doesn't take that much, guys. So that's good. That's good. So as we kind of, Neinball, did you have any more D3 questions?
No, I think that kind of does me for here.
Wow. Well, it happens. So, as we're kind of closing out here and moving into your new venture, also, side note, when you bring up Gas Giant Games, do you say Gas Giant Games or do you abbreviate and go GGG?
I usually go, well, I always say, I usually say Gas Giant.
Okay.
I don't go all those. I don't think, we did not think about it. We really didn't. Grinding Gears, sorry. Like, we should have, but all we were like, big planets are cool, and I like alliteration. Like, and we've been
love alliteration
for like 3 months what the name should be, and we finally got tired, and like that's what we liked the most. But if I had thought about it in the marketplace of abbreviations, because it's just not something you usually do for a company. You do it for a game, but for a company, I was like, I didn't think to do it. We probably would have made a different choice. So,
Sassy Saturn Systems.
Ooh.
I don't know what we would have chosen. I reached a point where I was like, big planets are cool. Let's move on.
Neinball, you and I will start Sassy Saturn Systems. I like it.
Don't threaten me for a good time.
I have no experience. I don't know what I'm doing, but we got a great name. All right, so we'll abbreviate as Gas Giant. I think that will definitely work. So you know, what lessons do you think that you can take from Diablo 3 and apply to Gas Giant?
Oh God, so many lessons. I think some of the big ones are we spent a lot of time watching the metrics on what people did in Diablo 3 and where they spent their time, where they didn't, what they loved, what they didn't love, just by where they go, the options they choose. That's really telling. Like what options they choose on the option screen, like, but also like pouring through thousands of pages um, of feedback from BlizzCon. Like, they really love to summarize the BlizzCon feedback, and we were like, especially Julian was like, no, I want all of it. I want every sentence, because to see what people are saying. So a lot of that I don't want to say, because it's going to be what sets our game apart, is those learnings. But definitely, I don't consider. I think Diablo 3 did moment to moment action gameplay really, really well. And I think on other areas of ARPG, there's a lot of areas that it could have done better. And those are the areas that we're going to focus on. Is like make the great combat that we know how to make, and then focus on the things that we know now are wrong, that we or could be better. But yeah, I don't want to be too specific, because that's where trade secrets.
Well, you gave us enough, a little bit of a taste, and I think that is exciting in and of itself. Jay, thank you so much for coming back. Um, we're gonna invite you back
As long as I don't
again.
as long as I don't get in trouble, then I'll happily return over and over again.
You're at the top. I mean, aren't you the one who has to yell at you?
No, that I don't want anybody yelling at me. I want minimal yelling. But that doesn't happen. So, but yeah, no, I have 2 founders who are they can both yell at me. So
Okay, that's fair. But I think you'll be okay. I think you'll be okay. And we're gonna keep inviting you back, because this is always a treat. So let's close as we always do with a moo, moo, moo.
Moo, 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 moo.
moo 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 moo.